Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome into Hoopsville. I'm your host, Dave McHugh, and welcome to the show. We have a lot to get to today, and we start with breaking news in Division III just happened late this afternoon, early evening, depending on where you are. St. Norbert has announced that they have suspended, for lack of a better description, the women's basketball program for 10 games. The reason, apparently, according to the statement from St. Norbert, and we'll read it right from them. The St. Norbert women's basketball team is unable to compete in its next 10 women's basketball games due to a violation of institutional policy stemming from an on-campus alcohol-related incident involving a number of players. The decision, as decided by the St. Norbert College Student Judicial Review process, suspends the involved students for 10 games. The suspension is effective immediately and will run through January 24th. The health and wellness of our student body is paramount importance, says Reverend Jay Faustner, the St. Norbert Vice President of Mission and Student Affairs. He goes on to say, "We have high expectations of our student athletes and our students in general," unquote. Additionally, St. Norbert is ineligible for the Midwest Conference Women's Basketball Tournament and regular season championship because it is unable to play a full conference schedule as a result of a situation within an institution's control. The Green Knights have currently played 8 games, are 5-3, 3-0 in MWC play. St. Norbert will continue with practice and other team functions prior to resuming its season on January 27th at Cornell. That is what we lead off Hoopsville with. We will get more on that in just a moment, but a reminder, you can interact with the show at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville on Twitter. You can also join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville, where we are streaming our program tonight. You can also email us, hoopsville at d3hoops.com. That's how you can get a hold of us. Lots of ways to do it, and we hope you'll take advantage of the opportunities. So the St. Norbert thing basically trumps a lot of everything else we have to talk about. We'll quickly mention our guests for this evening. Interestingly enough, we'll be talking about the Midwest Conference from a different point of view. But first, we'll talk about teams that are certainly off to good starts, maybe have had surprising results, but more importantly, are trying to manage the season at this point, because this is the time of the season when things get really challenging. You have finals and you have holiday breaks, and teams have to find a way to massage their seasons and keep the momentum that has been going already. So joining us on the show tonight to talk about those things from Averett men's basketball. Appreciate them last-minute invitation to join us. Their head coach will talk about the fact that they're the ODAC killers. For lack of a better description, they're off to a tremendous start if they were in the ODAC. We'll talk to David, head coach, doing 3 things here at the same time, about Averett. Then we'll switch over to the Midwest Conference and talk to Lake Forest men's basketball. They're off to a tremendous start this season with some significant wins. I know of the two voters who are voting for them. I am one of them. We will talk to them about really what does this mean? Is the Midwest Conference in men's basketball at least a little bit deeper, for lack of a better description, than we've seen in a long time? We also will then switch into women's basketball. We will talk to Wisconsin Lutheran. They're off to a tremendous start. Looks like they've got a team getting some top 25 attention that is playing pretty well. Probably expect a lot out of them. And then we'll go down to Texas. And the Austin Kangaroos may be 4-4, but they've got some significant wins. They also have a very unique scheduling situation. We will talk to their head coach. Had a lengthy conversation with her. It was a fascinating conversation. Thoroughly enjoyed that. Coach Philander will discuss it all with us. So that's still ahead, but let's get back to a couple things. One, we have last night to recap, and we have this St. Norbert story. So again, St. Norbert has decided to park its Student Judiciary Committee, basically parked a number of its student athletes for behavior related to alcohol. What does that exactly mean? What's at play? How'd this all come about? Dan Lucas, the athletic communications director for St. Norbert Knights, took some time just a short time ago to join me, and he discusses what this all means for the school and for the team. He joined me just a little bit earlier. Now joining me on the Hoopsville hotline, the Assistant Athletics Director and Athletics Communications individual, Dan Lucas, joins us from St. Norbert. Thank you for taking the time, sir.
Not a problem, Dave.
And obviously, as I've discussed already, as we've started this show, a surprise announcement here late this afternoon that the women's basketball program has been essentially suspended or really unable to play for the next 10 games. I think let's start there. There's a little bit of a gray area there. Suspended versus that means the whole team. Unable to play means maybe there's not enough players. Do I get the sense that this doesn't necessarily involve all the players on the team, but we do have enough that it now is problematic?
That's correct, and in the statement I sent and that Gordon posted, I used the word unable, and that's exactly where we are. We wouldn't have enough where we'd be able to compete over the next 10 games.
Now, those 10 games take us until January 24th. It obviously has a lot of the conference games. We'll talk about that in a minute, but I want to back up a little bit. I read the quote from Reverend Jay Faustner, the Vice President of Mission and Student Affairs for St. Norbert, and it says, the health and wellness of our student body is paramount importance. We have a high expectations of our student athletes and our students in general. And that certainly is what we would expect when we hear that this is a violation stemming from an on-campus alcohol-related incident. Considering the nature of your school and the religious side of it, the spiritual side of it, however you want to, is that to take it at face value, or as others might read into it, maybe this was a hazing incident?
Well, I would say if you get into it, it doesn't matter if it's an athletic team or a Greek organization or a student social group or any activity. You're held to a high standard, and even if you're just a regular student here, you're held to a high standard. And if, as any college would, has its own rules against underage alcohol use or alcohol use in general, even if you are of legal drinking age, and if those get violated, then there's going to be an issue, and that's what happened in this case. And it was thoroughly investigated and due process over a 3-week period, and that was the decision our Student Judicial Review Board arrived at this morning. Just to quickly be specific, because I don't want this to go off the rails necessarily. This is obviously you have higher standards at the school about alcohol, and you clearly said that. Should not read into this, and we've seen the Wheaton football case of a hazing incident. We've seen other schools with hazing problems. We shouldn't or should understand that had something to do with this, or is that unrelated? I think it was mostly misuse of alcohol. Okay, is an overindulgence of alcohol. Okay, would be a fair characterization. Okay. You say it goes through the process, so this has kind of been building for a little bit of time. Right. It was brought to the attention of campus authorities about 3 weeks ago. We have an investigator through campus safety and student life that investigate everything. Those reports then get sent to student life, and if necessary, get referred to a student judicial review board, and then they determine whether there's a hearing. There was a lengthy hearing on Tuesday. Every player involved and everyone involved with the incident, had a chance to give their say and answer questions and give statements in regards to the incident. And then after that, the Judicial Review Board gives its penalty. So clearly, quickly moving. I assume the penalty then came out today. Yes, that was announced about mid-afternoon, and after the hearing on Tuesday, the board met yesterday and then again this morning to finish any penalties in regards to this incident. Of course, the team played a game at Lawrence Wednesday night in between all of that, won 66-21. Of course, the team is 5-3, 3-0 in conference. You basically put an end to the season in the middle, I should say. We won't restart until you play at Cornell. The women's team, I should say, doesn't restart until they play on the 27th. How does this affect the conference? As we said earlier, we don't have anything officially in addition to it from the conference. How does, though, your games then affect the conference? Do they go down as forfeits? Do they go down as non-plays? How does that affect things when SOS is part of this? This gets a little confused. Right. My understanding, well, obviously we're already ineligible for the conference tournament and the regular season title. I'm guessing, or not really guessing, but it looks like that at the end of the year we'll probably be 0-0 in conference play. The 3 games we've played already will turn into non-conference games.
Interesting.
The games that we don't play are no plays, and then the games we play at the end would be non-conference games. And it's mostly if you're unable to play a full conference schedule as a result of a situation within an institution's control, then that's what makes you ineligible for the postseason or a championship. Now, let's say you got to the end of the year and there's a snowstorm and you couldn't travel to, say, Grinnell. Well, that's beyond your control, and if you couldn't play those games, then that doesn't prevent you from participating in the postseason or winning a title. So that's the distinction between the two on how you're ineligible for that or not.
So technically, they're just going to make this a non-conference season because of the number of games you're missing, in an effort to not make it an unfair situation for anybody else, and also not to get into any more confusing scenarios.
Right. If you just record those as forfeit wins, well then there's teams getting wins by the luck of the schedule, and that's
right.
Not fair to the teams we've played or are going to play on the back end. So I think the Midwest Conference executive director and the executive committee, they did their due diligence, and I think they came up with a fair result.
Of course, this is a program, Dan, that is certainly at control of the Midwest Conference. So this is a significant blow to not only the conference in the sense that we're going to have something a little bit different at the end, but this is a blow to a pretty respectful program.
Well, it is, but walking back over to my office after a meeting today, I think this will make us stronger. If everyone involved learns from this incident, do you get more out of that for the rest of your life than you would by playing 10 basketball games that you're going to miss here?
Sure.
And I think anybody would know that the right answer to that. So, I think sure, just a bump in the road and and a kind of a tough pill to swallow a little bit, but there's consequences to actions, and if you learn from it and grow from it, and other people and other teams on our campus and other campuses learn from it and grow from it and know that misuse of substances is a serious thing, then I think missing 10 basketball games is a small price to pay for that.
Well said indeed. One last question is, does this affect the academic standing of these individuals?
No.
Okay.
No, they're still all in school. So it's just from an athletic standpoint, it's just one of several other penalties that due to privacy laws I can't get into.
And certainly not trying to pry too deep. One other question is, when does this second semester officially start? The timing makes it seem like almost they're practically sitting until the next semester begins.
That's exactly how it was timed out.
Okay.
So when the spring semester starts, that's when they will start back up playing games again. And it's important to note, between now and then they'll practice and still have other functions between now and then, and hopefully the team learns from it and it makes them stronger people and going forward athletically as well.
So they will be allowed to practice.
Yes.
Okay.
Everyone involved will be allowed to practice.
And one last question: they're supposed to be playing in a tournament at Wilmington. One of the games is Chicago. We obviously don't know who the second game would be. I assume conversations were had with those involved and how that affects them.
Yeah, Tim Bald, our athletic director, I think I didn't get a chance. I knew he was going to try to call there. I assume he reached someone at Wilmington today, and obviously everyone in our conference knows already. But it's a tough situation. Hopefully they can work their schedule where everybody still gets 2 games there. It may require an extra day to play a format that way, but that's just an unfortunate piece of this deal that it not only affects our students but others as well.
Certainly. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time, Dan, to talk about this, especially on such quick turnaround. And normally we give our guests the final word. I don't know if there's necessarily one you want to finish up on, but I do appreciate you taking the time and helping us understand the situation.
No, you're welcome.
And Dan Lucas joining us again from St. Norbert. And again, Dan Lucas joining us here just a short time ago before we went on air to discuss the situation at St. Norbert. Again, to clarify, it appears the next 10 games we know are basically canceled. It appears the previous 3 games they played in conference will be changed from conference games to just regular season games, have no effect on the conference, and the games that they play when they come back will have no conference effect. The bigger deal is, how does this affect SOS? How will this affect results versus regionally ranked opponents for all of their opponents? It will change some of the SOS equations in the Midwest Conference. We will see how that affects things in February. We're going to have to wait. Don't know if that's going to have a major effect, considering the race has usually been through the St. Norbert women's basketball program. They were 15-3 last year, 18-0 the year before, 17-1 3 years ago. This is a program that is synonymous with controlling the Midwest Conference, obviously. How that will affect things this year, who knows? Lake Forest was off to a 3-1 start in the women's side. Knox, Cornell, and Ripon all 2-1. So we'll see. We'll see how this all affects. Of course, there's more to this. We will continue to follow it. I do want to say, from what he said, I don't think this has a hazing element to it. I want to stress that, because I don't want to mischaracterize what this might be about. But it sounds like this is not a hazing incident per se. So that is good news. We will continue to follow it. It sounds like it's just a bad decision with alcohol. And, of course, at a school like St. Norbert and others in Division III, this is not a joke. Plain and simple. It's not a joke. And so it sounds like it was a good night of fun on a campus, and the school has disciplined them for that. Some schools have stricter policies, and especially with underage drinking, than others. So enough players have been suspended by the Judiciary Committee at St. Norbert to warrant this decision as a result of that. So there's just not enough players to play, and that's what we will keep an eye on. So St. Norbert will not be in the NCAA tournament this year. We'll see how the Midwest Conference on the women's side plays out from there. We'll continue to follow this story, and if there's anything more, we will certainly bring it to you. In the meantime, I thank you to Dan Lucas for joining me. I do appreciate him taking the time to do that. So let's switch to the other news, and that's, how's everything going in Division III? Results last night. We had our first one. I'll be honest. I've been nervous. I've had Hanover pretty highly ranked. I like Hanover. I think they're a very good team, but I might have been a little bit too overzealous. I know I have them in my top 10. And I kept hearing chirps from individuals in Kentucky who are gearing up for Wednesday's game. And wow, Transylvania took out Hanover at 95-81. And to be honest, it wasn't that close. It wasn't that close. The second team, third team kind of allowed Hanover back into that game. Transylvania gets one of the biggest wins we've seen in a little bit of time here. They're happy about it. At the same time, it's early in the season, so Coach Brian Lane might be happy about that victory. At the same time, he's going to be critical about his team. He did speak after it. We got some sound with him, and here's some of what he thought with the win over the fifth-ranked Hanover team.
We came out and really set the tone early, and we're very aggressive in our defense. To be able to get it to where we in the first half they made a couple runs at us, and we still were able to keep it out got it out into a double-digit lead in the first half. I thought was huge. They're a very talented team, as everybody across the country knows, and our preparation for this game, we had to do some things a little differently because of the White inside and McKinney, and those guys are just they're just such good players that we've got. I really like being able to have guys come off the bench and continue to kind of hit them with the next wave, We've been very, very good offensively, and they play well together, and they play off of each other really well. How about Gabe Smith going 6 for 9 and actually going down in his percentages? You got a guy leading the nation in three-point field goal percentage. That really opens some things up. I thought Kyle Gullett had a sensational game. The guys coming off the bench were really solid. Drew inside. When we have the inside and the outside going, I think that's what really helps free up those guards. And we were concentrating on taking it in off the dribble, trying to get it into some gaps and not just settle for outside shots. we were able to get some, but taking it to the basket and creating some, and it also created some offensive rebounds. It was a big one because it's a conference game, and we needed to set that tone early about, this team is really good. I really like what we've been able to do. The trip to the Dominican Republic at the beginning and getting those extra practices. The last two games we've really stretched it out to big leads, and we just didn't bring it in the port, as they say. But I like the fact that those key guys that are starting and coming right off the bench, they're getting us to where we need to be, and I love that those other guys. We just got, when we get them in there, we really need to be able to sustain the same kind of pressure defense, the same kind of up-tempo offense. Yes, it's probably a game that some people are going to look at and say, well, that was a really good win for Transy.
Once again, Brian Lane talking about their victory, Transylvania's, that is, over Hanover, the fifth-ranked team in the country. Thank the Transylvania Sports Information Department and Athletic Department for getting us that video. Hats off, Transylvania, solid win. Again, it wasn't as close as the final score, 95-81. I tuned in and it was a 20-some-odd point. I watched a lot of that late first half and most of the second half while announcing a game, and it wasn't close. So congratulations to Transylvania. Hanover will fall, certainly. I still think they're a darn good team. And is Transylvania as good as that Hanover win, or are they better than that? I don't know. Are they only that win, or are they better than that? We'll see. We'll see as the season goes on. And again, another conference that's going to be fascinating to watch, the Heartland Collegiate Athletic Conference. That is the only loss in the top 25 last night. Tonight, Eastern Connecticut lost to WPI, but that was the only loss in the top 25. Those receiving votes, it was a rougher night. North Central lost to Augustana. Bowdoin lost to St. Joseph's, and it wasn't close, 77-58. John Carroll got its first loss of the season, losing to Mount Union by 4. A friend of mine who watches the show hasn't seemed to message me since that, interestingly enough. He was happy with John Carroll's start. I pointed out they hadn't played anybody. They played Mount Union and lost, so... Wartburg defeated Loris, so no surprise there. They're the ranked team. Virginia Wesleyan lost to Averett. We'll hear more about that in a moment. And Wheaton lost to Illinois Wesleyan, who's also receiving votes. So an interesting start. Quickly on the women's side, only one loss in the top 25 there as well. Puget Sound lost to Evergreen State, a non-Division III. It was close, 12 points. Puget Sound now 4-3, of course, with an oddball start to the season with scheduling. Wheaton lost to Illinois Wesleyan. Both teams are pretty much in the same slot. 27th and 28th in receiving votes. Carthage lost to North Central in overtime. Albright lost to Widener. Albright's off to a really rough start in women's basketball, 4-3, a little surprising. And Babson lost to Brandeis, 69-56. So that's on the women's side of things. By the way, back to Transylvania very quickly. They had a game on the women's side postponed this week, playing Bluffton. There was a car accident involving some of the players at Transylvania. The good news is nobody was injured, or at least significantly injured. The accident took place on game day, so they have postponed that game. My thoughts out to the team. Hope the very best for them, and we're glad that nobody was injured severe enough, and certainly worse than that. We're glad none of that took place. So we got a lot crammed into the beginning. We got to get going. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll get to our guests. Not that we haven't had a bunch already. We'll talk to Averett. The men's team off to a tremendous start. Remember, last season it was not a pretty start. It was a rough start for the Cougars. This is the polar opposite. And if they have any hopes of being in the ODAC, this isn't the kind of start you want. The ODAC team has been Averett's favorite target. But the rest of the season is essentially conference action in the USA South. What does that all mean? Our head coach for men's basketball joins us to discuss all of that. Plus, we still have Lake Forest men's basketball ahead of us. We have Wisconsin Lutheran, and we also have Austin. That's all ahead of us. You'll listen to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA NABC Studios. More Hoopsville after this.
I did receive a non-athletic scholarship upon entering school.
I got the presidential scholarship, which was huge for me.
I think there's more opportunities for academic scholarships in Division III.
I did receive academic scholarships. Just being involved on campus, being a leader, all those things combined kind of get me recognized. It's a great experience for me.
My name is Marcus Walker. I was All-State, won a state championship, a high school All-American, and played college and pro ball. I played because I love the game. I grind to be the best. I sweat because I put in work. I'm strong because I believe. When I want to bring it before game time, I come to the house that college basketball built, the CBE. No matter your skill, take it to another level. Elevate your game right here at the College Basketball Experience at Sprint Center.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
In any way that we can.
To get a friend home safe.
To never blame the victim.
It's on us.
To stand up.
To make our community safe for all.
It's on us.
It's on us to look out for each other at parties.
It's on us.
To be more than just a bystander.
To step up and say something.
It's on us, all of us.
To stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at d3hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
I did receive a non-athletic scholarship upon entering school.
I got the presidential scholarship, which was huge for me.
I think there's more opportunities for academic scholarships in Division III.
I did receive academic scholarships. Just being involved on campus, being a leader, all those things combined kind of get me recognized. It's a great experience for me.
My name.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. I'm your host, Dave McHugh. Hope you're enjoying the show. If you got questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville at D3Hoops.com, or join us on Facebook, Facebook.com/Hoopsville. The YouTube show that we produce is also capable of taking comments if you're able to. We'll take those as well. And even on Facebook simulcast, we'll try and keep track of things in there as well, too. So I think we got it all covered. Got lots going on, and we hope you're enjoying the show. Lots going on, as we mentioned, because of the breaking news with St. Norbert women's basketball, but certainly plenty of other things. In the South region in men's basketball, I got asked on the boards the other day, or really got a general question, and I answered it. Why isn't Averett getting any top 25 love? And my basic comment back to, or really I should say, was Virginia Wesleyan. Why aren't they getting any top 25 love? My basic answer was they didn't have much of a schedule to base it on. But someone did ask about Averett. My thought was, listen, off to a good start, certainly. They're 5-0 against the conference, which is nothing to dismiss whatsoever. I should say against the ODAC, not in conference. They're starting conference play soon. Their one loss to Concordia, Texas. It's an oddball loss because they got easily handled, but they had easily beaten Hampton-Sydney prior to that. Yet Hampton-Sydney then beat Concordia, Texas. So it's one of those what's going on here scenarios. And, of course, Hampton-Sydney beat Emory last week, which completely had me confused. So it's one of those, what do we make of everything type deals? Well, Averett did go and beat Virginia Wesleyan on Wednesday night, and I think that's pretty significant. They're now off to a 5-1 start, but the rest of the way is all conference action, thanks to an ever-growing USA South. Who are these Cougars? This is probably the last chance we're going to get to really understand just how good they may or may not be until some of the conference games later in the season. So it gave us a good chance to maybe talk to David Dueno and find out exactly what are the Cougars. So he joined me earlier today to discuss his Averett squad. Now joining us on the Hoopsville hotline, it is the head coach of Averett, David Dueno. Coach, thanks for taking the time.
Hey, Dave, thanks for having me. Appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely appreciate it as well. And obviously coming off of a win over your alma mater, Virginia Wesleyan, last night. As a voter, I'll be honest, I've been looking at you guys, and this week alone, I said, okay, they've got some good wins over Nodak that maybe is overrated. Let's see what they do against Virginia Wesleyan. Well, you got the victory, so that actually answers some questions. How do you feel the season started? It's 5-1 says one thing. How does the coach say?
I think we're finding ways to win games. I like how we're competing. I think our guys are understanding. I think we learned some lessons versus Concordia early, and our guys adjusted. and we're competing the way we need to. We just need to clean up some details. But we have an unselfish group that really is trying to work hard and cares about each other, and I think we're really leaning on that heavily right now. And hopefully, if we can clean up the details, we can find a way to keep winning games. But we're going to need to do that moving forward.
Yeah, talking about the craziness of a season, not necessarily related to you. You guys get smoked by a Concordia 91-68. You had beaten Hampden-Sydney 4 days beforehand. Hampden-Sydney then goes and beats Concordia, which just adds to the confusion on a situation where, like a voter myself, looking at your squad, you would be considered the ODAC killers at this point. You played all ODAC teams except for Concordia, and you are undefeated at 5-0. If you were hoping to get invited into the ODAC, you may have just shot yourself officially in the foot. I don't think they want you anymore. But on that token, what is it about? Is this a sign that you guys are really kind of, above what many expected maybe? Is this a sign that maybe we put too much stock in some ODAC teams? Is it a combination of both? Where would you put this if you were looking at it?
I just look at it as a coach with my team. We want to play the best competition that we can. We know that the ODAC, what they're considered as a league, and the type of coaches in that league and the tradition in that league, and we want to play those teams and the best competition that we can because we want to be battle tested going into our league. So I think anytime you could find a way to go on the road, especially 4 out of our 5 wins have been on the road, and beat a team like a Guilford or a Hampden-Sydney or Virginia Wesleyan, Eastern Mennonite, all these teams that not only coach well but extremely talented, in my opinion. I think we're trying to make a statement. Now you just got to understand that it's in the past and you got to keep doing the things that you're doing. But as far as ODAC killers and stuff like that, we don't look at it like that. We want to try to schedule the best competition that we can. We want to go out there and compete against them and see where we are and hopefully, learn lessons that gets us ready for conference play.
Yeah, interesting enough, as you said, you played a lot of these games on the road, which meant you've seen a lot of the southern and western and southeastern back hills of Virginia, because none of those are easy trips. None of them are on an interstate necessarily. So you've had to really kind of earn some miles, as it were. Is that something that battle tests your team for later when you hit the USA South Conference and you'll have some travel under your belt? Is that somewhat purpose-driven? Or are you always risking that you're going to wear your team out a little bit from the travel lag?
With our travel in conference, I think that it helps us early in the year to be able to go on the road, take a bus trip 3 hours maybe, and then, perform and come back. Some of these trips that we're taking later in the year are 7-8 hours away, and then we got to travel another 2 hours for the next day to play again. So we only have 2 of those big trips, 2 different weekends later in the year, but we do think that helps us get ready for conference and being able to make a trip and stay focused and have that business-like mentality that we're going to need when we make those types of trips. But it's also for us, we want, like I said, we want to schedule the best competition that we can. And if that means we have to go to a Virginia Wesleyan on Wednesday night, we're going to try to go there and schedule those people. And our goal is to get our program in the top 25 and nationally in it every year. We want to try to be consistent with what we do, but the only way we feel we could do that is to play these types of teams and go and see where we are. Last year at this point, I think we were 1-6. So, it has its ups and downs from year to year, but I also think this young group that we had last year learned from it, and now hopefully it's helping them this year grow into better players and stronger mentalities as well. So that's a lot of kind of how our program sees scheduling as, in what we do.
Yeah, I mean, you lost 11 of your first 14 games of the season. I mean, it would talk, and then the rest of the way, I think you won. Obviously, you only lost a handful of games after that to finish the season. How much does last year play into this year? How much are these guys going, okay, listen, we went through our lumps last season. It's now making us better. And how much is it buoyed by going off and starting the way you have now?
I think a lot plays into it, especially, a lot of those guys that played for us last year were freshmen.
Yeah.
Now that they see, this is the competition that we're playing, this is what our league looks like every night. Like last year, our league, from first to eighth place in the tournament was a 2-game separation. And 3 teams were tied for first place. So I think they got to understand that really late in the season, and we had great leadership with Charles Bryant last year and James Contreras, but that stuck to that business-like mentality even when times were tough. And they've learned from that. I do think that's helped mold them into the type of mentality they have right now and how we're trying to approach every day and trying to control the things that we can control. And that's one day at a time. So I do think it plays a part in it.
The first couple of games that you won, Hampton-Sydney, you won by 34. Guilford, you won easily, 82-69. You beat Lynchburg, though, by 8. Eastern Mennonite by 3. Virginia Wesleyan last night by 4. Things have gotten a little bit tighter, as one would expect as the season has progressed. Everybody's scouting each other. But is that also helping the program kind of understand it's not a cakewalk?
Absolutely. And Sydney was only a 14-point game. I don't know if he maybe, I think he said 30 or something like that.
I can't do math, Coach. My brain's fried. You're right. It was a 14-point game. I just can't do math.
No, you're good. I just wanted to, be coaches, we got to correct everything.
I'm with you.
And that's part of us. We talk about being battle tested. Every night in our conference, when you step on the floor, you got to be ready to go. Anybody could beat anyone. So, being in those tight situations and being in those game situations, like last night, ball in our hands, a 2-point game, 1:25 left, and we turn the ball over. That's something that hopefully we could learn from and come back in the future and not make that mistake and maybe have a chance to give us a little bit more room in that situation instead of having to get that key stop and a key rebound right there and then, So hopefully those types of things get us ready for this conference play and we're going to need to learn from those situations and adjust moving into the conference play on Saturday.
I was going to say, technically you start conference play on Saturday and you don't do anything but play conference opponents the rest of the way. Pfeiffer is new, so technically conference, not conference kind of game, but you'll have to play them twice. And then obviously the same with Brevard and others. I mean, this conference has gotten huge, and it's leaving a little bit less wiggle room to some degree. How hard is this grind going to be, considering it starts Saturday and that's all you do the rest of the season?
Yeah, it is. 19 league games it's a big number. It is, and the travel on top of it at times could be wears on a team, and like I said, we can only control what we control. That's what our schedule is. We're going to worry about Pfeiffer on Saturday and get to work here today and tomorrow and control what we can control. But it is a big schedule, and it's tough because there's so many good teams in our league and they're well coached, and you got all these teams fighting for one spot at the end of the day to get into the tournament. It's just it's brutal. It's brutal, and that's why we want to be battle tested going into it, because you got to be mentally strong and you got to be able to fight through tough situations each and every night. So it's tough, but it is what it is. And like I said, we can only control what we control. They're on the schedule, and we got to go and play them.
The conference is, as we said, getting pretty large. Is there some point where you as coaches are all talking how big is too big? It seems to be a catch-all right now down in that southeast.
Yeah, I think there's always concern for, being able to schedule, non-conference opponents that you want to schedule. You want to make sure that, the travel, like if we were to add 1 or 2 more, and it's another 6-7 hour trip away, at what point do we need to really, look at the size of this and see, what exactly direction we need to go. It's an ongoing conversation with the coaches.
Sure.
But like I said, right now it is what it is, and I think everyone's just focused on going out there and competing. I think we have a great group of coaches, and everyone, we like each other and we get along. We like competing against each other, but it is a big number, and we just got to deal with it right now, and hopefully in the future be able to figure some things out as far as travel and things like that.
Switch over to your team here, led by a sophomore in James Contreras Jr., 18.5+ points a game, 4.5 rebounds, 2.5 assists a game, shoots pretty well. You got a senior and one of two that are playing, Darren Kettner at 11.3 points a game, 9.5 points from Monte Cash, who is a freshman. So you kind of show that youth a little bit there, kind of a mixture of this team. There's a lot of guys contributing in a lot of different places.
Absolutely. That's one of the things that when I first got here, we really wanted to build this program with depth and have multiple guys that we could throw in there and be able to rotate the 10, 11 guys if we needed to keep our guys fresh and play the style that we want to play defensively. And we've been able to bring in those type of classes, some big classes over the last couple of years, and we got guys in every class level contributing. We got Montre and Raymond Bullock as freshmen. We got Ian Best, Tim Henry, Mariba Diaby, TJ McAllister, a bunch of sophomores and juniors, Austin DeLucia. And then we got our seniors, James and Darren, that are leading the way for us. So, it's exciting to see that, we got people at every level and every class contributing right now. And our leadership by our seniors are really important. They're in the gym every day working and leading these guys and in their ears in practice, building them up. But it's a fun time right now, and hopefully this depth will benefit us moving forward as this league. We talk about the depth of this league and the travel. Hopefully, those fresh legs and able to play like that benefits us moving forward and as we get deeper into league play.
Yeah, speaking of the league, North Carolina Wesleyan, Pfeiffer, Methodist, Greensboro, Fairman, William Peace are on your side of things, and you'll certainly play the other side. Huntington, for example, is the furthest one away, but you've got other pretty solid ones on the other side of the conference. How do you expect conference play to shake out this season?
As it does every year, it's really whoever could just get it going consistently in this league. It's been up and down. It's been anyone's night, depending on who shows up. But like I said, last year was a two-game difference from first to eighth place, and like a 4-game difference from first to 10th place. So you got to be ready to play because, Methodist returns a bunch of upperclassmen. Maryville has a bunch of upperclassmen. NC Wesleyan has all starters back. So, we got to be ready to go. LaGrange has represented us in the NCAA tournament, I think, 4 out of the last 5 years, it feels, I believe. So you got to be ready to go every single night. And that's just the grind of our league, and that's what makes it fun. And, it's really competitive, and there's a lot of real good rivalries that it makes it a lot of fun to be a part of.
Interesting coaching staff. You have David Greganis, who was a standout at North Carolina Wesleyan, and then you have DJ Woodmore, who certainly was a standout at Virginia Wesleyan, your alma mater. You've got some very talented players, former players there, who are coaches who've had some good coaching experiences so far. What do they bring to the table for you?
Those guys are the backbone of what we do, to be honest with you. It's unbelievable. The relationship, the loan that they have with our guys on and off the floor is unbelievable. They're like big brothers to the guys in our program. And then just to have their knowledge and playing experience. Dave won several championships with our teams at NC Wesleyan, was a great leader his junior and senior year for us when I was with Coach Thompson there. And then DJ, he's one of the best guards I ever seen at this level, to be honest with you, and his playing experience overseas. Just to have that type of D3 knowledge and understanding of how we try to do things and what we want our program to look like, and for them to be loyal to what I want them, to preach to our guys, they are outstanding, and we wouldn't be off to this type of start without those two guys. I could tell you that. They are definitely two guys that in the future are going to be possibly talking to you on this phone one day, or at a different level coaching, because they're both fantastic at what they do.
We talked about it a couple of years ago, coming fresh off the win last night. It's probably worth bringing up again. It's got to be a little bittersweet to be taking on your alma mater and Coach Macedo almost every season, I think it is, for you guys, and to get the victory. It's got to be good because you want the victory, of course, back at the place you played, but at the same time, it's got to be a little bittersweet. It's your alma mater.
Absolutely. Coach Macedo, for one, is a mentor to me, an older brother type figure to me. I was his first recruit there when he first got the job, and then he hired me as soon as I graduated, and I was with him for 3 years. And our relationship is something that I value a lot. And I was excited for our guys because I know going in there and how hard it is to win there, and the start that we got off to, that we got 8-1 early, and I've seen teams get off to that start there. I've been in that building and seen them roll teams early like that, and then to be up late and then make that type of run that they did the last 3 minutes. And I've been in that situation before as well in that gym, and they usually pull those type of games out. To see our guys stick with it and find a way to win that game, I was really happy and proud for our guys, but at the same time still had that, there's a little bittersweet feeling for Coach Macedo, because I knew how he was. I know, he's a competitor and how he was feeling at the moment. And, those nights that we go against each other, we know that, we want to win those games, but on other nights we're cheering for each other and always have that type of relationship. So it is a little bittersweet, but it is nice to go back because I know what type of program and how he does things and the respect that I have for him.
Sure.
To find a win there is really, a good step for our program.
Yeah, it certainly helps to start 5-1 too, as you said, taking that step for the program. Cougars off to a great start. Got Pfeiffer coming up. Coach, I appreciate you taking the time. I know you're neck deep now pretty much in preparing for conference action, so I appreciate you finding time to chat with us. As always, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who are tuning in?
No, I just thank you, Dave. We always been following you. I've been part of D3 now for going on 18 years since I've been a player in 2000, and the coverage that you guys give us is fantastic, and just appreciate everything you guys do up there.
Well, thank you, Coach. Take care of yourself. Safe travels in the conference, and happy holidays.
Same to you, Dave.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Coach David Duino taking the Cougars to a 5-1 start. As we said, conference play unofficially, officially, however you want to say, starts on Saturday against Pfeiffer. Coach Duino, appreciate his time. As that was earlier today, we talked to him about the Cougars. Again, Pfeiffer coming up. It's in conference, but it's not conference. Pfeiffer is transferring into Division III, as it were. So they'll play 2 against Pfeiffer and 1 against Brevard. I can never say that one right. We have time to work on it. Those 3 games technically won't count, but the rest do. A lot of conference games. USA South's pretty big. I wonder if that's going to be a talking point in the future, if it isn't already, about what is the best way to handle the USA South in the future. But hats off to Averett. Good start to the season. Going to take another break. When we come back, we will talk to another team who's certainly playing pretty well, Lake Forest out of the Midwest Conference. How exactly do we kind of chalk that one up, and what to make of the Midwest Conference? You listen to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA NABC Studios. More Hoopsville after this.
For the love of the game. But for those of us who are Division III student athletes, it's more than that. A lot more.
Sure, the game is important. But as we work so hard to build both mind and body, it's more about team.
That is why NCAA Division III teamed up with Special Olympics. And in giving the gift of sport to those for whom it seemed an impossible dream, we are working to make this a better world.
Help us keep that dream alive.
You can make a difference.
This is why we love sports. It's in the way they play, free from the pressures and all the money talk. Playing for simply the love of the game, where everyone has a shot at their definition of success on and off the field. This is what we love about sports and what we can still love about college sports.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at d3hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. I'm your host, Dave McHugh, coming to you from the WBCA NABC Studios, presented by d3hoops.com. If you got questions for us, email us hoopsville at d3hoops.com. You can also tweet us at d3hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. We're on Instagram at d3hoopsville as well, though we don't check that during the show. And you can try and message us on Facebook, facebook.com/Hoopsville, or on the YouTube page. We'll try and keep track of that as well. Quickly, a recap of our breaking news from earlier tonight. St. Norbert women's basketball has basically parked their team for 10 games. Enough players were suspended by the Student Judiciary Council for an alcohol-related incident that they don't have enough members of the team to play games. So those players will be parked until the start of the second semester, which means they are done for 10 games and will not start playing again until the 27th of January. That will take place, or that ends up with 10 games. They can practice during that time. That includes 2 games at a tournament in Ohio that includes Chicago. Not sure how that will affect that tournament. We'll certainly keep an eye on that. We bring that up because it is part of the Midwest Conference, where the women's games now for St. Norbert, the previous 3 conference games will apparently be switched to non-conference games. Obviously, they will then have 10 games that are basically canceled that they will not play. And then the other games, the final games, will be played in the non-conference. One other factor we did not talk about is how will this affect those teams that may lose 2 games out of this deal in the Midwest Conference, essentially finishing the season with 23 games. Remember, the Midwest Conference now back up to the 25 max. That has a significant effect on things. I'm not sure how that will be played out. Sometimes there's an exception and teams can go find another opponent and put them onto their schedule if they need to. I'm not sure. We'll keep an eye on that as well to see if anybody replaces those opponents. But that segues us into the Midwest Conference on the men's side. One of the teams that everyone's talking about is the Lake Forest Foresters, off to a 7-1 start. There are a couple of people who are voting them in the top 25, including myself. They got a win over Grinnell, 104-91. The score is not surprising. It's just a solid victory. Just came off a win over at Illinois College last night, 79-62. Their lone loss at the beginning of the season to what appears to be a pretty good Loras squad themselves, 84-81 was the loss for Lake Forest. So what do we make of this squad? Are they as good as they appear to be? Could the Foresters make, along with some other teams, Midwest Conference, a little bit more interesting this season? Their head coach, Ken Davis, joined me earlier. Now joining me on the Hoopsville hotline, it is Ken Davis, the head coach of the Lake Forest Foresters. Coach, thanks for taking the time.
Oh, please. You're welcome, Dave. I appreciate having me on.
Terrific start to the season, to be blunt. A team that's hovered around 500 for the last 3 years. It's been a while since we've seen a 20-win team from this program, but usually a program that's in the middle of the Midwest Conference. You guys are off to a 7-1 start, with your lone loss being a close one at the start of the season to Loras. You got to be thrilled with how this season has begun.
Yeah, I think the guys have done a good job. I think we've had really nice senior leadership with 2 young men that now have been a part of our program. And I think the guys left off last year a little hunger for more. We lost in our conference championship tournament game, and I don't think they were satisfied. So yes, we've been very pleased so far.
When you have won non-Division III, by the way, a game in there where you played Great Lakes Christian, won that easily, but you played Carthage, who everyone thinks is a pretty tough team in the CCIW this year. You beat Chicago, who's coming out of the UAA, automatically everyone thinks is tough. They're probably going to be finishing in the middle of the top tier of that conference. You've got wins over Grinnell, a tinkered team from what we're used to in a high-scoring affair, and you're coming off a pretty nice win over Illinois College. Is there a point where this team is maybe playing either above expectations, or are they playing in a way that you want them to, but now you're just making sure they don't peak?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you know, coach speak, as you know, we want to be playing our best basketball at the end of the year, and I think there's still a lot more for us to work on and improve. I think the biggest thing right now, I think our guys are starting to do a nice job on the defensive end and making adjustments to people as we go on and really focusing on the things that, you know, as a group that we talk about. And so, you know, it's one of those things that, like I said, I didn't ever want to put a ceiling on where they can get, and I still don't. But, you know, I've liked some of the things that we showed so far.
This is a relatively young team as well. You've got two seniors, Orlando Brown and Eric Porter, but the rest, number of juniors, number of sophomores, number of freshmen. So young and kind of diverse in that sense of how many classes you have. But you're not that I'd ever want to say we're looking towards next year, but the way this team is built, this isn't a 1 year or early season thing.
Yeah, we hope not. We you know, think now we've established, you know, that typical culture, and I think now our guys go in expecting, you know, to win. I think which was a big thing for us, you know, getting over the hump with certain things. And right now, like I said, I think we're trying to build something as a program that can be sustained over time.
Of course, the two seniors are in the top three in scoring. Eric Porter, 21.3 points a game, 2.5 rebounds, 2 assists, nearly 2 steals a game while shooting 51.5% from the floor and 49% from deep. The junior Danny Sotos, 15.5 points a game. Orlando Brown, a senior, 9.3 points a game. Those last two, Sotos and Brown, also averaging 6 rebounds a game. I'm going to get to one other player in a moment because one of his stats jump out at me. But that core three certainly playing well. And obviously you have two seniors there, so they're going to have to kind of teach the younger guys a little bit of how to step into their roles.
Yes, definitely. And I think they've done a good job. The work ethic of those guys that you mentioned are really such that they lead by example on and off the court, and they're very, very mature. I'd throw in also a young man, Jordan Moran, that's also in that junior class, and also one of those guys that just you can really count on from a maturity point. And those are guys that, you know, they just do the right things in the classroom and on the court, and they really have led by example, which has been terrific for us.
Yeah, you add Brown, 8.5 points a game. He's another guy with 6+ rebounds a game. All three of those guys, Sotos, Brown, and Moran, all shoot better than 50% from the floor. Actually, all 5 of your starters shoot better than 50% from the floor. But Sean Espinoza is a freshman who is starting for you. He is averaging a shade under 7 assists a game while pouring in 8.5 points and grabbing 2.5 rebounds. But 7 assists a game, that's an astronomical number, and we're past the point that it's only a handful of games.
Yeah, Sean's done a good job. He's one of those guys that has really adjusted to, you know, the college level. It took him, I think, a little time early on, and I think he's one of those people that he's a basketball gym rat. He really he works hard. He had played at a very high level as far as high school wise, and played for a very good program and with his club team as well. So I feel we were very fortunate to get him, and he was probably, you know, a little bit under recruited, and now he's done a terrific job for us.
You enter an interesting dynamic now. You started the season 7-1, the first 8 games being, you know, taking place in the first 3 weeks of the season. But you're now on a 10-day layoff, most likely due to exams, until you'll take on North Park at home on the 16th. Then you'll take your holiday break and then play in a tournament between Christmas and New Year's before you get back into conference play. So now you're in this really challenging part of the season where you got to keep these guys at the level they were at 7-1, but while playing 3 games in the next 3 weeks. How do you keep them focused? Obviously, we have academics, and that's important, and a time off is important. But how do you keep at the level you were at right now?
Yeah, I think that's something, you know, as a group we've talked about. As a staff, we've definitely addressed that. And like you say, just as far as where everything falls, it's definitely a different kind of dynamic. I think with our guys right now, they're trying to set a standard, and they really understand that. 3 challenging opponents for us, but at the same point, I think right now our guys are hungry. I think they want more And really, it's one of those things. To me, the big thing is just a conditioning perspective, and I think they'll do the right things. I really do. I think, like I said, the leadership's been very good, and they're mature enough to pass that along to the young guys.
And we mentioned the 2 games coming up between the holidays. You'll play at Roosevelt, and you'll play Roosevelt and St. Francis of Illinois, both of them non-Division threes. It's an interesting dynamic at this point in the season. You know, beginning of the year, I think we're used to it, especially teams in the Northwest or Calvin and Hope certainly throw those games in against local ones. You're throwing it in the middle of the season. So you have 2 dynamics. One, the games technically just won't count. Yes, they're going to be on your record, but when we talk about at-large or seeding or anything like that, they aren't necessarily going to come into play. But they're also they're right after a break and right before you get back into conference play. I never would say you wouldn't take those games seriously, but I can understand why you wouldn't necessarily need to, except you're about to get back into the real part of your schedule. How do you tackle a tournament like that?
Yeah, I think for us right now, it's one of those things that, like you say, we want to maintain a rhythm. We want to maintain a mentality. So we're definitely going to take those as any other non-conference game that we have in our schedule. It'll be a nice challenge for us, some different teams. I think it's one of those things, like you say, with finals and then break. We're not going to have an enormous time to game prep, but we'll definitely be ready for those. And I think our guys understand that it's all about a level to continue to improve, and that's how we're going to address those games and go after them.
Is it more of internalizing the games instead? More like exhibitions and scrimmages in preseason, where you go out there and you're going to execute X, Y, and Z. It really doesn't matter how the game is progressing. Yes, you want to adjust and make sure you learn how to adjust, but it's all about you necessarily. It's not necessarily about the opponent.
Yeah, I think there's definitely, a combination. Obviously, for us, we're going to treat it as any other game, and we're going to go through a detailed scout. It's one of those things that I think our guys, as they continue to get used to that and game prep, we're going to have the same routine. We're not going to change anything. So, yes, I think at the end of the day, it is definitely about us, but we're not going to go in there just blind and, throw the balls out and go ahead. We're definitely
sure. That's a little harder.
Take those games. Yes, especially for us at this point. So,
and then you'll get into. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh, I think our guys will, like I said, they'll be mature about it. They really will.
And then you get into the conference schedule, and I think for the first time in a while, the Midwest Conference at the top feels a little bit more wide open. St. Norbert has dominated this conference, for lack of a better description, for quite a while. And it's not that they're still not good; they are. But looking at the conference as we speak, you're 7-1 overall, 4-0 in the conference. St. Norbert's 6-1 and 3-0. Monmouth 6-2 and 3-0. Lawrence is 5-1, 2-1. Grinnell's 6-2, yet they're 1-2. And even Cornell seems to be in the mix. And I realize it's early on, and not everybody has played some behemoths of a schedule, but it really feels early on that this Midwest Conference might be a bit of a fight this season.
I think our conference this year is, as strong as it's ever been. I think out of league, teams performed and kind of met expectations. Definitely in my mind, being very frank, I think our league, right now still continues to go through St. Norbert. Like you said, I think 2012, I believe our group was able to capture the regular season league. And but I still think, Gary's established, just like you say, some of the things that we talk about, just a winning culture, and his guys understand that. So I think still that, they're at the point where they're kind of the gold standard of our league, and we've got to be at that point along with the others where we're trying to match that. And I think it's been, in the long run, I think it's, as coaches, as players, everyone's competitive. I think it's been a part of us, like I say, improving our league. So, hopefully our guys will be able to continue the journey. Like you say, our first game back after, we got to make sure that, we take care of business. And, I'm looking forward to things, like I say, on a daily basis.
Talking to Ken Davis, head coach of Lake Forest, off to a 7-1 start and 4-0 in Midwest Conference play. Coach, how much has being able to play 25 games now on the schedule helped you? Is that one game difference actually made a difference, as it were? How much has the changes in the conference maybe allowed a little bit more flexibility?
Yeah, I think it's something that as all 10 schools, I think it's terrific for us. I think it's going to enable us, to be in that realm where teams are now considered for at-large bids. I think, teams have scheduled accordingly when you look at who people are playing. And I think, all in all, it's something that definitely I think has been a positive for our league. Just allows us to play some different teams, like you said, that we weren't always accustomed to. So there's been, to me, no negative.
By looking at the conference, Grinnell seems to have adjusted things. Arsenault Jr. in charge of the program, essentially, and it seems like he's adjusted the quote-unquote system. However, you still had to put up 104 points to put them away. Do you see any adjustment on their end? Do you see a change, and how do you think that's going to impact things?
Yeah, I think they're obviously one of those programs that's here to stay. I think there's a terrific continuity, and I think David Jr., he obviously does a really nice job. So it's one of those things, like you say, they know who they are, they know their program, they play to their strengths. So it's always going to be a challenge in our league just because of the style of play and some of the differences, and they're not going anywhere.
Sure.
So, always been impressed with what they do.
Obviously, you've had to adjust to their style. Did you see their style being a little bit different this time?
There's little things that they tinker with and change, and I think they continue to, season after season, and make adjustments, like you say, as far as what they do, and I'm sure they'll continue to. Yeah,
it's just fascinating with the junior in charge now, how much things may or may not adjust with his experience of coaching that
Absolutely.
He's had. And speaking of experience of coaching, you don't exactly have the prototypical coaching travel log, as it were. Graduated from Arizona State, and you had a broadcasting degree with a political science background, and you decided to go into the Chicago Board of Trade as a futures trader. You got your master's degree. Everything looked like you'd be one of those kinds of guys where you go in every day and fight for the futures and make some money. And then you got called to coaching. And so now you went into high school and now college. That's not, I'm all about the non-prototypical travel through life, but you definitely have taken a road less traveled in some degree.
Yeah, it's been a fun journey for me. It's been a great experience. I think, coming out of college, working at the Board of Trade, it was one of those things as a young kid. I had some coaches that were in that profession. I always really looked up to them, and I had gotten started working in the summers, and it was something that, in the back of my mind, I really always wanted to do. But I definitely had a plan. I really knew that I wanted to somehow get back into coaching and education and kind of serve. And I think it's been fun. I had two, in my mind, terrific mentors. One, Coach Pappas, Steve Pappas, was a legendary high school coach, and I got an opportunity to work with him. And then my predecessor here, Chris Conger, did a terrific job, and both those two really, I think, taught me a great deal and taught things the right way. And so, it's been a good experience.
You, in this climate nowadays, do you wish you had stayed in your broadcasting political science background, or are you kind of glad you didn't go down that road?
I would say I'm very, very happy with the decision I made.
I had a feeling.
Yes.
I had a feeling, sir. Yeah, that was my gut feeling. Though,
this climate right now, this is a lot more enjoyable.
That would have been funny to see Ken Davis, not that we would have known any better, either on Fox, MSNBC, or CNN, whatever the case may be, being a political expert and broadcaster. It would have been, that's a different road, and I'm kind of glad we're talking to you here on Hoopsville instead.
Yes, I am too, by the way. And it's interesting. I have two sons and a daughter, and one of my sons was a political science major as well, so he's got the coaching bug too. So I'm hoping he stays away and stays in this.
Maybe more and more political science majors are really just trying to find a way into coaching, and they understand that even in coaching, there's some politics.
Oh yeah, could be.
Yeah.
Could be.
Well, Coach, I appreciate you taking the time to talk about the team, the conference, and yourself. Certainly a terrific start. I'm voting for Lake Forest. You've gotten mine are 4 of the 7 points you're getting. You can either be fair or unfair to yourself, whatever you want to do here. But is that the right vote? Is voting for you in the top 25 the right thing for this program?
You just talked to me about the political aspects of things.
Yeah,
and
I
don't
set
want to
you
be
up.
Negotiating right now, but I think right now, I think we played a very good schedule. I think our guys have done a good job. I want to believe in my mind that we're one of those teams that can compete with anyone. I've seen some of the results of the teams that we played and who they've beaten and so on and so forth. So. I think you have a good vote, but at the end of the day, as you said, I want to make sure we have your vote when the year ends.
Sure.
And that's the one that's going to be most important to us.
Yeah, I can understand that entirely. Well, congratulations, like I said, to the terrific start. Appreciate you taking the time. We have a tradition on the show. We always give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those tuning in?
No, I just appreciate, Dave, for you having me and for the things that you guys do for Division III basketball. I think the exposure level that you guys create for the men's and women's is terrific, and it gives a platform for those student athletes that really are, very passionate about what they do. So just thanks to you and everyone there, and I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for taking the time. Good luck the rest of the season. We'll look forward to keeping track of the Foresters.
Thanks very much.
Absolutely.
You too.
Once again, Ken Davis from Lake Forest joining us on the Hoopsville Hotline. Thanks to Coach Davis for joining us and talking. Different career if he hadn't gone down the coaching realm, is it not? So thanks to him for taking the time. Midwest Conference could be one of those fascinating conference races. That being said, I'm starting to name a lot of interesting conference races this year. I think the UAA is going to be fascinating. Midwest, CCIW, OAC, NCAC, NESCAC. We can name almost half of them right off the top of our head. They're going to be fascinating to watch this year. I look forward to it. And thanks again to Coach Davis for joining us. Going to take by the way, quick note. They will take on North Park coming up on December 16th, so a week and a half away. Then they take on Roosevelt and St. Francis, and then they get into conference play January 3rd against Monmouth and go the rest of the way in conference. Going to take a break. When we come back, we'll switch gears, talk women's basketball, and we will talk specifically, we'll head a little north into Wisconsin, to Wisconsin Lutheran, and talk to the Warriors head coach for the women's program there. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA NABC Studios. More Hoopsville after this.
Division III allows you to give yourself to other things.
Having that free time allows me to pursue the things that I want to pursue.
Division III athletics affords students the opportunity to, engage in the other interests in their campus and in their lives outside of that sport.
It allows you to just be able to do everything you want to do. I wouldn't change it for the world.
I'm a Division III student athlete, and I know how powerful words can be. The term gay doesn't mean stupid, lame, or less than.
So I pledge to speak up if I hear the term gay used in a derogatory way or any other homophobic terms.
If you can play in Division III.
I'm a Division III student athlete, and my teammates unconditionally accepted me as part of their family. So now I pledge to do the same for others. If you can play in Division III.
I used to never really talk, ever. I was afraid if I said something wrong, everyone would laugh at me. But then I started to play golf with Special Olympics. It helped me to find my voice. And now everyone else is speechless.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
Division III allows you to give yourself to other things.
Having that free time allows me to pursue the things that I want to pursue.
Division III athletics affords students the opportunity to, engage in the other interests in their campus and in their lives outside of that sport.
It allows you to just be able to do everything you want to do. I wouldn't change it for the world.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you're enjoying the show. If you got questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville at D3Hoops.com. You can join us on Facebook at Facebook.com/Hoopsville. All the usual ways to get a hold of us. We certainly hope you'll take the time to do that. We love interacting with our fans and want to hear from you. We're also simulcasting on Facebook, and et cetera, et cetera. Lots of ways to get a hold of us. Of course, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA NABC Studios. So we're going to switch gears, talk some women's basketball now, staying in the central region, slide up the coast, as it were, the Lake Michigan coast, inside joke. Talking Wisconsin Lutheran Warriors women's basketball, off to a 5-1 start. The one loss to DePaul at the beginning of the season. They beat WashU, which you might find a little bit of a theme here this evening. Have beaten Rockford, Elmhurst, Dominican, and Lakeland to get off into conference play at a 3-0 clip. They've got Alverno coming up this weekend, and obviously the rest of the conference slate as well, and getting some top 25 attention. We usually talk to the Warriors a little later in the season, so I thought it might be interesting to talk to their head coach about his squad here this evening. So joining us on the Hoopsville hotline is the head coach of the Wisconsin Lutheran Warriors, Coach Knuppel, Clay Knuppel. Coach, thanks for taking the time, and welcome to Hoopsville, sir.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate you having me on tonight.
Absolutely. Appreciate, as I said, taking the time. I know you're under the weather, so it means even more to us.
Yeah, I've been yelling a little bit too much, I guess, or something.
That's what the team would say. Absolutely.
Yes,
that's what the team would say. They'd be 100% in agreement that you have been talking too much to them in a very negative manner. So first and foremost, obviously a good start to this season. This is what I know you'd want in this case. The loss to DePaul is one thing, but a 13-point win over WashU, no matter who that WashU team is certainly important. Is it the same read from your point of view, though, that we're seeing it from?
Yeah, I thought, our opening tournament, just a great group of teams. And, I always try to get my dad's tournament, Paul's Knuppel Classic. I try to get the best teams I can in there, and just thought that was a great start for us. To play DePaul, and we played them tough, and we just couldn't battle that one out. But then to turn around and play WashU, and just the way we played them, it was great for us. Obviously with the changing in the head coach at WashU, but also they're still a really, really good team, great program, and to go out there and be able to beat them and control the game. I thought we controlled the game the whole time. So that was great for our program and great for our kids. Yeah,
I agree with you. It's still impressive, to say the least, that you get that win. A changing coach is nice, but it doesn't mean it makes or breaks necessarily the outcome. And it got you rolling. It got you into conference play with an easy win over Rockford. You got a non-conference win over Elmhurst, as we mentioned, and then Dominican and Lakeland. You're getting some top 25 attention as a result of that. That certainly, I know, means a lot to the program. It means a lot to the players. It feels like at this point you've gotten the best start you possibly could have asked for, except maybe the win also over DePaul.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I thought going in, probably about, a month and a half ago, everybody was asking how we could schedule DePaul and WashU, and I thought I was a little nuts at that point. Just trying to see where we were at with our team and how we were going to compete, and we started running a little bit of a different offense this year, just trying to get our team to be a little bit better. Didn't feel comfortable with what we were doing a little bit last year, and we scrimmaged Wheaton before the season, which is great for us. With Kent down at Wheaton, we just had a great relationship and scrimmaging them every year, and that helped us, I think, get ready for our season and get ready for the teams that we played. And it was a good start for us. Really, really happy with where we're at right now and where we're progressing.
One thing you said, you talk about the new offense, and I certainly am not going to ever ask a coach to give us the X's and O's because he knows other people are listening. But I am curious about something, because when I look at your stats, you're playing 6 players more than half the game, and only a handful of players are coming in and getting any, not even double digits in minutes. It seems like you have a relatively short bench. Again, a couple players are coming in to spell people, but you're playing basically 6 players. Is that part of that change?
No, I really love to play a lot more people. I just think right now where we were at with the WashU win and how they played together, it's just kind of a rotation right now. We have one player that had some issues that will be back at Christmas time. That'll help us with our rotation. And then, at the beginning of the year here, we just had some success with that new offense, I guess you could say. The flow and how we're running things, those guys are running it really well. The other guys in our program right now, I thought in this last week here, they've been really starting to understand where they're supposed to be a little bit better, defensively and offensively. So I think our rotation will get into where it'll be 9 to 10 deep. That's where we're going. We're going to get to 9 or 10 deep by, hopefully into January here, where we can play a few more guys.
You're led by Jen Dowden, a junior, 18.8 points a game, 6.3 rebounds, 4.5 assists on top of that. And then this senior, I don't know if you recognize the last name, Caitlin Knuppel, 16.2 points a game, nearly 4 rebounds a game, 2 assists a game for herself. Another senior in Karina Carson at 11.2. Those are the 3 in double figures, including one that looks relatively familiar. In relatively familiar is the key term, Coach.
Yeah, some really great kids. I don't know about my daughter. Sometimes she gets a little bit aggravated at me when I yell at her too much. But
They all say that.
Oh yeah. I used to get mad at my dad when he coached me back in the day too.
Sure.
So, but some good kids. I mean, Jen, if you get a chance, if anybody gets a chance to see her play, just the inside out player, 6'1", and can bring the ball up for us. I know she'll get some All-American attention just because she has that ability and has that skill, can post up, can shoot threes. Just is a huge factor for us. And then Karina has done a really good job for us as a point guard. I mean, she really kind of came into it last year for a starter for us, and has done a great job for us, has a lot of quickness. And then my daughter, spent a lot of time in the gym. Spent a lot of time in the gym in the summertime. Spent 3 to 4 hours a day, shooting 1,000 shots a day. And she loves the game. It's going to be tough for me to see her go at the end of the year. Just be my last daughter that's going to be going through. So it'll be kind of a sweet end of the run with my kids. So
I was going to say, this isn't the first time. I know you've had a lot of experience with this, but it's going to be a little bittersweet. I know senior day is going to be a bit emotional. We're not there yet, but on that token, what's it been like to be able to coach your children?
Oh, I love it. I learned a lot from my father and learned a lot from him coaching me and just how he interacted with me. And it's just a great experience. I don't think you could trade it in for anything. Some days you want to be, I've made her cry a couple times, which I don't make players cry, but my own daughter, I kind of pushed a little bit sometimes. But I think it's made her the person and the player she is, and it's just been it is awesome to coach your kids. My first daughter didn't get to play very much in games, but just had a great experience and just being with them. I have a huge family, so my dad, my whole family's involved in the program. They're out recruiting for me, and they all come to the games, and it's a great family experience for us.
I'm sure it is. Back to what's ahead for you, this team. You're off to the good start. You obviously have a lot more to take care of. The season ain't over. You got Alverno coming up in conference, and then you're going to have non-D3 St. Francis to play. Then you'll play Aurora. That's all before the new year. So 3 games between now and the new year. Conference action, of course, returns on that December 30th game against Aurora. A lot of conference games, not a lot of opportunities to go outside of conference. How important is it to hold on and win, not win this conference, but at least control this conference?
Well, it's every game we talk to our players about every single game. I mean, we got Alverno next, and we just play every single game as hard as we can. And, we feel that since I've been coaching, I just push our guys at every game, no matter what the record, everybody is out kind of to beat you. You've been at the top of the league for a few years, for many years, and it's, everybody wants to beat you pretty bad. So it's you got to put your best foot forward every single game. We know how much that means toward the end of the year. So dropping one, you know, we don't want to do that. So we got to focus on what we need to do for Saturday and take that game. Obviously, the non-conference game, I had to pick up one. Somebody had dropped a game on me, and I ended up not being able to play a D3 school. And, you know, that one we'll play. I mean, we're going to do the best we can at that game, but, you know, obviously, but that doesn't mean as much as our conference games coming up. And, you know, we just take one game at a time and really focus on each opponent and take every opponent in our conference at the best that they're going to play.
Do you, and the NACC, you know, doesn't necessarily get always the same respect as everybody else, but you guys certainly still kind of represent pretty well, especially Wisconsin Lutheran, but other teams as well. Is as competitive as it seems sometimes? You had a 15-5 record last year, 16-4 the year before. It's been a few years since you went undefeated or 19-1, or is it still top heavy?
It's a little top heavy, but I think we have some younger coaches in our league that are, you know, they're really stepping up. They're out recruiting. I can tell they're out recruiting. I think that's a huge step for our league. You know, where you're seeing them out there more. You're hearing more from other players that I'm recruiting. That you know, you kind of get that feel from those teams that they're really working to try to get some good kids into their school. So that's a plus for us. I think it is a little top heavy for the guys with CW and Benedictine and us, and I think CUC will be pretty good this year, and you know Lakeland was pretty good last year, and it'll be decent this year. So it is a little bit on the top heavy side, but again, as I said before, the opponents in our league, they want to beat us really bad, and we got to play tough every single game, and I don't have, you know, we have firepower, but again, we got to play really hard on defense every game out against our conference opponents, because they're trying to do things, you know, against Caitlin and Jen, and you know, they'll face guard Caitlin a little bit more and those kind of things. So we got to just figure out how we're going to, you know, accomplish what we want to accomplish this year.
Well, Coach, I appreciate you taking time to talk about it. Fascinating start for the Warriors. Again, the win over WashU certainly got plenty of attention, but you know it's not like you didn't play DePaul well either. And Elmhurst was a good win, and obviously it's the rest of the ways conference play, but it's a good start. And I tip my hat to you guys. As always, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those tuning in?
Well, I really appreciate you having me on. I really appreciate it. And D3 Hoops is just, it's awesome. And to get our conference on and be able to talk to you a little bit is great for our league. And we really appreciate what you guys do. And, you know, we'll hope we can keep on winning here, and we'll keep working for you, and hopefully be able to bring home a conference championship. But, again, I really appreciate you having us on.
Well, thank you for taking the time, Coach. Enjoy the season. Enjoy, obviously, with your daughter. Good luck the rest of the way. I know we'll probably be talking to you later in the year.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Happy holidays, Coach.
You too.
Thank you. Coach Knuppel joining us here on the Hoopsville Hotline. Again, his squad off to a 5-1 start, 3-0 in conference play. Alverno coming up on Saturday, then 10 days off before they'll take on St. Francis. Then another 11 days off, they'll take on Aurora. And then everything really gears up in January when they get back into conference play. Going to take another break. When we come back, we'll head down to Texas, talk to the Austin Roos women's basketball program. What are they up to? They also have a significant win over a WashU program. You listen to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA NABC Studios. More Hoopsville after this.
Cheer for the stumbles, the he shoulda had that's, and the tears that linger. For in those moments, greatness lies. There, you will find the provoked, the determined, the unified. It's in those moments that champions are born.
Great moments are born from great opportunity. That's what you have here tonight. That's what you've earned here tonight. This is your time. Now go out there and take it.
My name is Marcus Walker. I was All-State, won a state championship, a high school All-American, and played college and pro ball. I played because I love the game. I grind to be the best. I sweat because I put in work. I'm strong because I believe. When I want to bring it before game time, I come to the house that college basketball built, the CBE. No matter your skill, take it to another level. Elevate your game right here at the College Basketball Experience at Sprint Center.
Something I discovered in myself is that if I have a goal, then I can accomplish it.
It's a well-rounded experience.
At a Division III school, you primarily a student athlete, so the school is really shaped around you developing yourself as a complete individual.
It helps a lot that you have a family with your team that can guide you.
Cheer for the stumbles, the he shoulda had that's, and the tears that linger. For in those moments, greatness lies. There, you will find the provoked, the determined, the unified. It's in those moments that champions are born.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody, as we continue to roll along here in the second hour of the show. It's talking women's basketball at this point in time. Of course, Hoopsville presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA NABC Studios. If you've got questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, Hoopsville at D3Hoops.com, or join us on Facebook, Facebook.com/Hoopsville. Switching gears, heading down to Texas, talking to the Austin Roos women's basketball program. Might be surprised at 4-4 that they're a topic of conversation, but they did have a win. Their last game against Wash U, 85-77. One of the best pictures we've had on D3 Hoops. We've had two of them now, one on the men's side, one on the women's side, and it came from Austin Roos and their head coach, Michelle Feilander. Their 4 losses say just as much as their 4 wins, believe it or not. They've had a pretty challenging schedule, but also an interesting schedule. We talked extensively with Coach Feilander in a fascinating interview that we talked to her earlier today. Here it is in its entirety, and really take a listen to a lot of what she talks about in terms of scheduling and what her passions are. It's all coming up here when she joined me earlier today. Now joining us on the Hoopsville hotline is the head coach of the Austin women's program, Michelle Feilander. Coach, thanks for taking the time.
Thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Obviously, we invited you off of the heels of beating Wash U. That's a significant win for the program, no matter who Wash U is. At the same time, though, looking into the 4-4 record, I noticed some things there that kind of intrigued me. You guys, while 4-4, have kind of some strong victories in there, and you're not shying away from some opponents here.
No, we're not. There's a very strategic way that we go about our scheduling. I think we're fortunate in kind of our regional area that we have the ability to reach out and play some pretty strong programs and pretty strong teams here in the South region. So we take every advantage of doing that. We just feel like the opportunity to play against teams that have either been in the NCAA tournament the year before or are likely to be NCAA tournament teams in the coming year is something that we want to do. We want to put ourselves in that position. One, as a measuring stick, but two, also as a form of preparation and
Sure.
and a way to kind of prep ourselves and know where we stand. So yeah, certainly not, and it's what we want to do. I think our combined 4 losses, I think those teams together have 2 losses themselves. So, it's not what we would have preferred, but it's not something we certainly are embarrassed by either. So, so that's...
Yeah. Well, yeah, 2 or 3 losses amongst the teams you've lost to, which are Texas Dallas twice, East Texas Baptist, and Hendricks. And you handed Hendricks its only loss of the season. That's the other quirk about this schedule that I wanted to talk about, too, though. It's almost like you're playing a conference schedule against non-conference opponents. You have played 2 against Texas Dallas. You have played 2 against Hendricks. You will end up playing 2 against Millsaps.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it's because sometimes in that region it is tough to find games. But was there another idea? Because even they're deciding to go ahead and play you twice.
Yeah. Some of it is just relationships. to be quite honest. And I'll give Polly down at UTD a shout out. She's an Austin College alum,
right?
And they sit 50 minutes away. So that just kind of becomes easy, and they're good competition, and we enjoy one another. So we do that every year. Now, moving forward, we're not going to be able to do that as our conference expands. But
yeah, sure.
But to get the games, it just kind of makes sense for us. Neither one of us hurt each other, so we do that. As far as Hendricks and Millsaps goes, they used to be in the SCAC,
right.
And we've maintained really, really good relations. They're pretty easy, reachable distances by bus for us. So we just kind of maintain that some of those good relationships and ability to play those quality programs. And there's schools like us, schools we respect, and people that we like to compete against. So, as the future goes and conferences change and things shift, we may not be able to do twice anymore, but we'll certainly look at maintaining minimally once a year. We like playing those guys.
And obviously it changes, so this question may be completely irrelevant moving forward. But is there a risk you're playing? I don't know how often you're necessarily in the at-large conversation, but you're playing a risk in the sense that you're kind of washing out those games and making it a 500 SOS because you're playing them twice, just like you would in your conference. So you leave yourself only one or two games that have any influence. Is that a risk, or is and I'll ask bluntly, is your program at a point where that's irrelevant? You got to go win your conference, and that's all that really matters.
I think right now that's where we are.
Okay.
I think, and I've been on the regional ranking committee now for the last 3 years, and in the South, and quite frankly, as you start to move to 4 and 5 losses, it doesn't seem to get the job done from an at-large perspective. So, so you are looking at securing the automatic qualifier. So it's not something that we've been have a heightened sense of awareness about simply because of that situation. I mean, there's some great schools over in the ODAC. There's some great, that are going to probably be 2 and 3 loss teams at the end of the year and high up in those regional rankings. So, I mean, we've cracked the regional rankings the last 2 years. We were 8th 2 years ago and 7th last year, but it's just not quite enough. So I think we do run that risk. But given some of the parameters that we have to schedule in, and the opportunity to play other teams, it can sometimes be hard to be too specifically strategic.
Speaking of kind of your experience on the regional committee, are you saying basically that the SOS doesn't take as much, and I don't want to say priority because that's not the right word, but it doesn't have as much influence as maybe we think it is, or you've already gotten to enough losses where really your SOS is no longer relevant?
It's the latter.
Okay.
So it's not so much, the SOS is certainly important, but winning percentage at the end of the day is going to be a priority. So if at any point that winning percentage falls too low, then the SOS is going to come into play, but it still can't. At some point, you're playing tough teams, but you got to beat them. You got to win.
Yeah.
So, really, that's what it comes down to.
And obviously, you could try and improve your SOS to make up for the losses, but then you're playing. It's a double-edged sword, and that's where you get into the really tricky part of scheduling. We won't go into that minutia, but it's a conversation I have with people all the time. Go schedule yourself. Go ahead and take a couple losses, but understand at some point you are going to cross over that line too. But you go and schedule yourself really easy and have a lot of great wins, losses, but a horrible SOS, then you've gone in the other direction, and you're actually going to hurt yourself too. So it's a fine line to some degree.
Exactly. And the balance in the South is even tougher to achieve. I mean, with the other Texas League down here, they have so many conference games.
Yeah.
It's tough to find opportunities to play some of those guys. We do our best, and they do a great job working with us as much as they can.
Yeah, I agree.
But it's kind of a little bit of a scheduling nightmare sometimes.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see the ASC go to an ODAC model where you could free up some non-conferences so they could play some SCACs along the way.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll see as things progress. That's the one thing I've learned moving south, kind of all my coaching experience prior to here has been in the Northeast. So moving south it's there's so much change from year to year. I was definitely brought up in a much more consistent conference environment, but it is what it is down here. So, but we'll see as things move on.
We'll talk a little more about the team in a moment, but let's talk more about the schedule coming up. You've got that rematch with Millsaps. You've got a game against Rhodes. You'll take your break, and then you'll have the rematch with Texas. Or not rematch. You'll play Texas Tyler for the first time, and then get into conference play in the SCAC. tough part of the season, we kind of talked about it with some other guests here tonight, is keeping the team focused when you take a break for exams, which you're kind of in the middle of now, play a couple more games, then take a break for the holidays, then come back and get ready. And, of course, you're going to enter right into conference action for the first time in your case. How do you keep the team focused? How do you keep the team, while focused on academics and taking a break, which they need, focusing on also being ready for the next game?
Mm-hmm. For we're in a little bit different situation, at least with this particular group and their personalities. Once we get through finals, life does get easier for us, despite the breaks. If you look at the way we kind of play out in the first few weeks of the I joke all the time, I just despise November because I'm coaching doctors and lawyers at the end of the day.
Yeah, true.
And I love it, and that's why I do it. But there's some times when they're not entirely focused because they're trying to get into med school, and how can you blame a kid? You can't. It's what they're here to do. So we tend to get a little bit better and more focused as we move into December and January, because that academic load has gone away because finals are over, and we don't start the full spring semester until the end of January. So as we move into conference, they have the ability to kind of lighten up. We tend to kind of hit our stride about mid-December, which makes me excited as we get to that point of the year.
Is that kind of?
So it's,
Go ahead.
It's a little bit opposite for us.
Is that kind of? You said to me off air the season has been a little bit of schizophrenic to some degree. Is that what leads to that? And it's not a lack of focus. I don't want to say that, but the fact that they have to focus on so many other things.
Yeah. Yeah, it's partially that. It's partially the way that we have to schedule. I think we played 6 games in 12 days, and we practiced 3 times since tip-off.
Oh, wow.
So there just wasn't a lot of opportunity to adjust. We were oftentimes prepping for a team on one day. So it was just kind of the complexity of the schedule and what it leaves you the availability to do, because we have to try to push so many of those games into a small amount of time in those first 2 weeks of the season. So I think that was not in our favor this year. The other thing is, our youth. We're about half and half. I've got some good returners, but there's a lot of my minutes that are going to freshmen who've never been on a 3-hour bus ride to go play an away game. When we went down to ETBU, a lot of my freshmen were like, "Coach, that's the longest bus ride I've ever been on." I'm like, "Well, get used to it."
Welcome to Texas.
Welcome to college.
Yeah.
So so I think our youth, the freshmen have to learn how to navigate the college game and what all that entails with the travel, and not just that, but freshmen have a huge transition that they have to make. And I tell them all the time through the recruiting process, as hard as you play in a game right now is as hard as you're going to play in practice every day. And there's a physicality to games and to practice that they haven't experienced on a day-to-day basis that they're going to experience now. So we kind of have to get them through all of that fairly quickly.
You have 2 seniors, you have 5 juniors, 3 sophomores, and then you talk about that freshman group. Let's see, I had the number and I've already lost it. 2, 4, 6, 7, 8 freshmen. So your team's all over the place a little bit here with 2 seniors and then 5 juniors, but you've got these 8 freshmen, and along with the sophomores, you do have a lot of youth on this squad.
Yeah, we do. It's just the way that, I think our freshman classes typically tend to be always on the bigger side. It's just the way Division III is a little bit of an imprecise recruiting science.
Yeah.
So
retention's hard.
But we've always had a couple of freshmen every year impact us, but this year we've got 4 or 5 impacting us. Yeah. And we knew that was going to be the case. We just didn't have the depth that we were happy with at all last year. So we intentionally went out and, worked like you wouldn't believe to get this group in here. We knew what potential we had. It was just a matter of, and this has been part of the first part of the season too, trying to figure out rotationally what that looks like. Where's your consistency going to come from? Because you just haven't seen these kids perform in those situations just yet. So we have to learn them, and So that's been part of the early season growth process for us too, is just figuring out how to rotate that youth, how to combine it with our experience and our upperclassmen learning those freshmen that they're having to play so many minutes with them, and really trying to figure out what rotation works best for us. And I think we certainly answered a lot of questions this weekend for ourselves. We did make some changes going into this past weekend as far as positions and lineups and rotations are concerned. So it's been me trying to learn them a lot.
Bryce Frank, a junior, leads a team 15.5 points a game, and Savage, a junior, 12 points a game. We should point out Frank hauling down 6.5 rebounds and handing out 3 assists. Addie Walling, a freshman, 8.5 points a game. Casey West, 8.5 points a game as a freshman as well. Solid rebounding from Walling. All 3 of those, well, 3 of the 4 of those with solid assist numbers as well. Yeah, we don't really get to the senior class statistically until we get to Megan Lewis at 5 points a game. This is definitely a little bit of a younger squad, and again, mentioned this on an earlier interview, not that we are looking ahead, but it is building to the future. Yeah,
I've been excited just because in some ways I get to coach the same team for 2 years. And that's, of course, we're going to miss Megan and Kendra as we move into next year, but just from a body standpoint, we're realistically getting to coach the same team for 2 years. So as we planned and looked ahead, we wanted to choose things philosophically, adapt things. We did make a few adjustments going into this year defensively and to our motion offense because we knew we had that opportunity ahead of us.
Sure.
And what that meant. So we're not focused on it. Mm-hmm. I'm very aware of it and quite excited about it. But for now, it's just getting better every day now.
Yeah, you circle back to the Wash U game back on December 2nd. You got the 85-77 win. Love the picture we had on D3Hoops.com of you kind of looking up to the sky. I couldn't.
Please let this be my opportunity to tell everybody I am 20 weeks pregnant.
Okay. That's not where I was headed, but okay.
Mother, I'm like that one. I'm like, gosh, there needs to be context around that.
Well, I was going to say the look on your face was one of, it seemed kind of relief that you got the win, if that makes any sense. Mm-hmm. But also kind of, oh my gosh, we pulled that one off. But clearly there was more going on than just that.
Yeah. I was actually, at the time that they got that, I was walking towards the end of the bench. I always tell the girls, I'm like, no matter what, enjoy things, but act like you've been there. And so I thought I had a moment to myself there as we walked to the end of the bench. I was very wrong.
In your own mind, you did.
Yes.
You're in a gym, Coach.
Yeah, I know. So, but yeah, I mean, it was all of those things. Just kind of the realization that we had accomplished something that really was meaningful for this team, but the program as a whole.
Yeah. And how much does that spark the rest of the season? How much now can you go to your team and say, hey, you can do this, darn it?
Oh, I mean, absolutely. I mean, you always need, and they talk about, when you hear, all the commentators on TV and everybody talk, they always talk about signature wins, and they talk about the things that, that start to allow you to consolidate a little bit. And so you're always looking for that opportunity and for that win to come along. And we've been fortunate over the last several years. We've had that opportunity, unfortunately at UT Tyler's expense for the last 2 years. But yeah, so we've been fortunate that we've had a group of kids that and team that have been able to kind of get that win and then really build and say, okay, this is a confidence boost. We've answered questions. We know now what works and how to replicate that. And then not only that, but psychologically and then this is what we try to talk about to them, just purely from a, like I said, from a psychological standpoint, is replicating that feeling and that joy of winning and the fun that you had and how you got to play just to feel that way again.
Great segue, because we can talk about the fact that you have in the past, at least, don't know if you still are, given lectures on stress management and psychology of injuries. You seem to be one of those coaches who can understand the psychology of the student athlete, having been one yourself at the D1 level for a period of time, but also understanding it from your studies, that's got to be integral and huge for your coaching abilities as well.
It is. We have put a very heavy emphasis on our culture, our team culture, and that's all the psychology. I joke all the time. The best thing I could have done to prepare myself to be a women's basketball coach is get a psychology degree. And that's just it. And so we put everything into culture, and we almost spend more time on that than we even do the X's and O's. And training leadership skills, and training communication skills. Everything that we leave no stone unturned. We don't leave anything to chance. I think sometimes you hear coaches say, well, I'm just waiting to see who my leaders are going to be, or I'm waiting to see who shows me they have the potential to be my next great captain. And, we'll be as good as these captains our leaders want to take us. Well, we just assume nobody knows what that means. Like, we don't expect any 18-year-old high school graduate to get here and be a great leader or know even what leadership means. We assume you know nothing, and it's a skill that we have to teach you. And so we do that. We start training them as soon as they get here as freshmen as to what our definition of leadership and culture is, and how we accomplish that, and what everyone's role and responsibility is in us achieving the type of culture and atmosphere that we all want to perform in on a daily basis. And so what that's done for us, it's created a high level of consistency. So every year when our seniors, our 4-year players, become captains for us, there's no doubt as to whether we're going to have a good group of captains. They know exactly what to do. They know they've been ready for this for 3 years now, and taught how to handle a lot of different situations and what's expected of them. So we put a ton of effort and a ton of time into that piece of it. For me, there is an empathy piece of it, just knowing that I look back on my career as a player. And, I've kind of played a lot of different roles. I've been the injured kid. I've been the bench player. I've been the sixth man off the bench. I've been the starter. I've been the kid that makes the winning shot, that misses the winning shot. So I have, and we talk a lot about empathy in the program, but I empathize greatly with each and one of my girls, no matter what role they find themselves in. And so we work hard then, to build those relationships around the fact that we can understand each other on those different levels. Talking
to Michelle Feinlander, head coach of the Austin women's basketball program. I should point out she's also the SWA and assistant athletics director at Austin. And you would probably have a fascinating conversation with John Tower at St. Thomas men's basketball, similar mentalities. And by the way, I should point out there's a few coaches like yourselves out there, but I think you and John would probably have a fascinating conversation on that. Quickly, before I get to the conference, before we wrap up, we're having a great conversation here, but per your education, you played D1 at Robert Morris for a period of time. Unfortunately, injury curtailed that. You ended then up at Ohio Wesleyan, and then you got your master's at West Virginia. But what really did Ohio Wesleyan kind of steer you into Division III? Was that how you kind of got into the division, as it were? And how in the world did you end up in Texas after all that?
Well, the story is, after my injury at Robert Morris, I remember sitting in the locker room with my teammates, and I had decided I wanted to pursue this psychology degree. It wasn't quite exactly what they offered at Robert Morris wasn't quite what I was looking for. I remember sitting in the locker room talking to a lot of my teammates, and I asked them what they were doing. I'm like, what are you guys doing after this? Like, what's your plan? And a lot of them were going back to school. And I'm like, wait. You're telling me you're going to graduate here and you're going to go get another degree, undergraduate degree, because you're not getting what you want here, just so you can say you played 4 years of D1. And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, I don't have time for this.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
Yeah, so I made the decision mid-year, about 2 weeks after ACL surgery, to transfer to Ohio Wesleyan. They had originally recruited me out of high school as well.
Okay.
And so I was familiar with them. I'd already done a campus visit my senior year in high school. I was a little further from home, actually, than Robert Morris. Pittsburgh was closer to home than Columbus. But I transferred and attempted to play again and ended up tearing that ACL again. And that's when things really really changed. At the time, I thought it was the worst thing that had ever happened to me. I had just lost my college career. It was done. ACL rehab back then. I'm dating myself, was still a 12-month
Don't worry.
12-month recovery
I still think
process.
it is.
So, I was just beside myself. And my college coach at the time, Nan Carney DeBoard, she's the athletic director now at Denison University, she actually came and found me in my dorm room, and I'll never forget it.
Wow.
And she was like, well, what are you going to do? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm just going to sit here and cry right now. I'm like, I'm in the dark crying my eyes out, after my second surgery. And she's like, well, you're not going away. You're not walking away. I'm not going to allow you to do that. So she gave me basically a student assistant role on her staff, but it was so much more than that. It wasn't just me filling up water bottles and kind of being a glorified manager. She gave me legitimate responsibility. I got to coach the JV program. I scheduled the officials. I drove. You wouldn't dream of doing this nowadays, but I drove the vans. To get the girls to the JV games. During the varsity practices, I had breakdown drills by myself. If there was something that I noticed at halftime and I told her about it and she agreed, she would go use my words in the locker room verbatim. And those were the moments when I'm like, man, she trusts me and maybe I like this. And from there she helped me. She made a phone call and introduced me to the next huge influence in my life, which was Gina DeRubo at Washington. She's now at Washington and Jefferson College, but at the time she was the head coach at Bethany College. And Gina hired me on as her assistant, as her graduate assistant. And so I worked with her for 3 years at Bethany, and then we both jumped together to W&J for 4 years. So, and then, worked with Gina for all those years. And I think she still has one of the highest active winning percentages in Division III women's basketball. So I've been very fortunate to be around I just think the best quality in the game from a coaching perspective, and mentors that I very much look up to. So when it came time and I felt like I was ready, and the moment I knew I was ready to be a head coach was when I realized it was going to be a huge responsibility, and I don't know if I wanted it. And that's when I knew it was time, because I was like, man, I'm going to be responsible for these girls, and it's important that I do this right. So I started looking, and it was, for me, the most important thing. I remember Mike Krzyzewski saying once that if you want to build a program, it's got to be the best academic institution you can find. Okay. And then you can build a program. And so that was my criteria. I didn't want to limit myself geographically. There's only so many opportunities around. I mean, we're in a profession that's very limited. So I was just looking for the best academic institution that matched my value set and what I had been through academically, and how important I felt that was, because, you got to recruit and you're selling a product. And if you don't believe in what you're selling, you're not going to, one, be very successful at it, but two, I got to sleep at night. And so I never lose a second of sleep at Austin College. It's such a phenomenal academic place. And I know exactly what the opportunities for such a great education these kids have. So Texas came along. I came down for the interview just thinking it was going to be a practice interview. And I remember it was the longest interview ever. It was like a 3-day interview. I'm like, these people are crazy.
I've never heard of a 3-day interview.
I got on the plane in Dallas to head back, and I called my husband before we took off, and he's like, well, how'd it go? And I'm like, I think it went really well, but you're not going to believe this. I really like it down here. And he's like, you've got to be kidding me. And I said, no. And he's like, well, we'll talk about it more when you get home.
Exactly.
And a week later, I had accepted the position, and we were getting ready to pack the moving truck and move across the country.
Wow. So, Sherman, Texas, too.
Yeah. Well, and Texas has been great. I mean, we've assimilated well. He's now the head swimming and diving coach here at Austin College. Oh, cool. So, it's become a family affair.
Sherman, just north of Dallas, for anybody who's not familiar.
Yes.
Up
Don't
near
fly to Austin. It'll be a huge mistake.
Yeah. A little north. They're just south of the Oklahoma border.
Yeah.
There. So kind of the northern part of the state, right below the Red River. Before we let you go, quickly about the conference. Trinity, Texas has been the behemoth, though there's certainly been other teams who have been in the fray. Is Austin in the fray this season?
I like to think so. I mean, I certainly want to put us there, regardless of, I guess, what anybody else thinks. We were picked in the preseason poll second, and that's just, I think, a sign of respect from the other conference coaches, and we certainly appreciate that. So we were picked to be right there. I think we return, several of those all-conference performers and that type of thing. So, it's conference play, and everything changes when you get to conference. People know you so intimately well, and it's a different type of game when you get to that. So you've got to, I tell the girls it's all about eating the elephant. You eat an elephant one bite at a time. So to put ourselves in the situation that we want to be in, that's exactly what we've got to do. You've got to take these teams one game at a time, because on any given day and any given night, and once you get into conference. But yeah, I mean, that's going to be the case. And Trinity's always looming out there. They've got a phenomenal program, phenomenal coaches that do a great job, and we have a lot of respect for them. But we love competing against them. That's for sure.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time, and fascinating to see how the SCAC race works itself out this year. Great chatting with you. Learned a lot. Appreciate you taking it. As always, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who may be tuning in?
Man, I'm so appreciative of those out there, and the coaches and the student athletes and the families, and Division III basketball is such a special thing. Division III in general, but D3 hoops and D3 basketball, it's a phenomenon, and you really have to understand it, and you really have to know what we're doing, because the beauty of Division III is the balance, and I get on my D3 soapbox all the time, but what we're doing here, and these leaders that we're producing all across the country at all of our different programs, and what these young men and women go on to do is just absolutely outstanding, and I'm so grateful to know that we have at least a little bit of their life. 4 years is small snapshot in the grand scheme of things, but just so grateful for all the things that Division III has to do in the future leaders of the world.
Well, you couldn't say it better. Certainly what we appreciate about Division III as well. Thank you for taking the time. Have a wonderful holidays, and we'll look forward to talking to you in the future.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Michelle Feinlander joining us here on the Hoopsville Hotline. And thanks to Coach again for joining us. Great conversation. Went a little longer than we normally do because I didn't want to stop. It was tremendous. And if anybody doesn't know, we don't tend to edit our pre-taped interviews. They start and finish the way they were recorded, unless we have extenuating circumstances. Granted, that one could have fit. We could have probably found some spot in there that we didn't need to air, but we certainly wanted to air as much as we could. So hats off to Coach. Couple quick things to recap. We're wrapping up the show here. Instead of taking a break, we're just going to wrap up the show. We had a busy night of games. Amherst and Babson came down to the end. Do you remember when that was the game of the year last year? To quote my colleague Ryan, we expected that. Ryan Scott, remember last year we were watching that game, went double overtime. Amherst won. Babson taking their first hit. We're like, wow, this could be a fascinating year. Two things of note. First off, this year's game wasn't nearly as good as last year's game. It still came down to the wire. Amherst leading by 2 at Babson. Babson comes down, and I don't remember who the player was right off the top of my head. Goes for a 3 and is fouled pretty much at the buzzer. They line guys up, so there's a little bit of time on the clock. And hit all 3 free throws to win it for Babson by 1. Here's what I thought of it. A year ago, that game was the game of the year, and we thought these two behemoths will be fighting it out for the rest of the season. Obviously not in conference, but in the regional rankings. We'll probably see them in the national tournament. Amherst has gone the opposite direction ever since then. They started last season off tremendously well, and then, finished 500 or less than 500 the rest of the season last year. I'm actually going to double-check that. And off to an average start this season. They're getting top 25, don't get me wrong. But that's their first loss with five wins to start the season. I know that. But Sarah Lawrence, Western New England, Westfield State, Emerson, and Anna Maria. Let's be blunt. That's not exactly a who's who list for Amherst men's basketball. And they better beat Sarah Lawrence by 30. They better beat Western New England. Granted, it was by 12. They better beat Westfield State. They beat them by almost 40. They better beat Emerson, who they beat by 13. And they better beat Amaria, who they beat by 27. Correction, 37. But they had a rough end of last season. They ended up finishing 17-8 after starting the season 8-0, with the Babson game being win number 7. So they went the rest of the season 9-8. So interesting how difference in 2 seasons is, to say the least. Amherst, their first loss of the season. They'll take on LaSalle, who they played immediately after Babson last season. They'll also take on Springfield. Now, interesting note about Springfield. Springfield tonight took on Trinity and were leading early. They got out to a hot start, and they were leading early and then just took a loss. They lost by 18 to Trinity. Let me double check what that scoring difference was in the stretch. I saw a tweet earlier. I'm see if I can find it quickly here. Trinity outscored Springfield 41-22 in the second half to win 72-54. Our colleague Gordon Mann says I don't think he's ever seen Trinity beat Springfield. Well, it happened this year, which only adds confusion to the rest of the slate. By the way, Springfield will take on Williams and Amherst in the next 2 games in the next week, and then they'll head to Texas, down to Trinity, Texas, where they'll take on Southwestern and Trinity of Texas. So Springfield, an interesting slate. By the way, a little note: I know why they're heading to San Antonio. Charlie Brock, the head coach of Springfield, and Pat Cunningham, the head coach of Trinity, very good friends. So that's why that game took place. So a couple notes of men's scores, and also the score we mentioned, WPI upsetting, quote-unquote, upsetting Eastern Connecticut, and Babson, quote-unquote, upsetting Amherst, just because those 2 teams, Eastern Connecticut and Amherst, both nationally ranked. We'll see what happens with top 25 voters on how they react to that. I know I'm not voting for Amherst, so it doesn't affect me. Eastern Connecticut, I will rethink a little bit, and we'll see if we keep them in there or not. Way too early to say. Only the 3rd or 4th top 25 loss of the week. On the women's side, I know Rochester and St. John Fisher were playing. I believe that game is still underway. Yeah, it is still underway. Not sure of the score off the top of my head. I'll see if I can get that. Otherwise, nothing really of note. No other top 25 teams were taking place. Nothing really jumped out at me in games. Rochester leads St. John Fisher 50-28 as we bring this to a close near the end of the 3rd quarter. Also, back to our breaking news once again. The St. Norbert women's basketball program has canceled the next 10 games of the season, which goes through January 24th. They've had a number of players who have been suspended due to an alcohol-related incident on campus. It went through the entire process on campus, including an investigation onto the Judiciary Council, which is student-driven. We should point out it doesn't appear this had anything to do with hazing, and I'm trying to make sure that that is understood. It appears these students, there was some underage drinking, we believe. Long story short, they suspended enough players that St. Norbert can't field a team for the next 10 games because the players have been suspended for 10 games. They've basically been suspended until the next semester starts. The 3 conference games they had already played in the Midwest Conference apparently will be changed to conference games or non-conference games, and the remaining conference games will be non-conference games. That way no one has an advantage or disadvantage. That said, there are going to be some teams, I believe, who will have lost 2 games off their schedule. Almost everybody will lose 1 game off their schedule, but some will lose 2. I'm trying to double-check who they are. For St. Norbert, obviously there's a tournament in Wilmington, Ohio, that will be affected by this, including Chicago, who will most likely lose a game unless they tinker that schedule a little bit and work it out. But games that will be double missed, I'm double checking. Cornell lucks out. They're the first game that be canceled, but they will be back in session, or their first game back will be against Cornell. Interesting enough, I don't see any double misses. Beloit, Grinnell, Illinois College, Monmouth, Ripon, Knox, Lawrence. So by luck, only 1 game will be missed by all of those teams. Whether the NCAA will allow them to find another opponent and pick up that game is to be determined. That has happened before. We'll see what happens. Got a text message from a coach I respect. It says, hey, Kings women's basketball moved to 5-2 tonight. They won all 5 games against the CSAC and lost close games to both landmark squads. You're right, Kings women off to a pretty good solid start, and I want to thank him for the text to remind me of that. I saw that tweet pop up a moment ago as well. So an interesting night here on Hoopsville, starting with some breaking news and some other things. Got a couple top 25 upsets in there as well, and plenty of others. Got lots of content into tonight's show. Believe it or not, it's still run by me and me only. I don't have a staff. I really need a staff. We're going to have to find a way to keep this show on the air by finding staff members to help us put this show together, graphics and emails and chase down other content. But I want to thank everybody who helped us out. By the way, quick note on the men's side, Williams eked it past Fitchburg State. I'm joking. They won 106-56 over Fitchburg State. I can't seem to say that correctly. Rochester rolled over St. John Fisher in men's basketball 82-64. I forgot to mention those 2 games. I wanted to make sure to mention them. Anyway, so I want to thank everybody who came on the show and the sports information directors and others who helped us. I want to again thank Dan Lucas, the assistant athletics director and athletics communications director for St. Norbert, for coming on the show. I want to thank the Transylvania Sports Information Office for getting us a sound from Brian Lane after their big win over Hanover, and one that is going to have us voters certainly rethinking things with Hanover and maybe with Transylvania. I also want to thank the coaches that we had on the show, Dave Duino, along with Ken Davis on the men's side from Averett and Averett and Lake Forest, respectfully. Clay Knuppel and Michelle Feilander from Wisconsin Lutheran and Austin, respectively, and, of course, all their sports information directors as well. Thank you for interacting with us on the show. Appreciate you taking the time. We're going to be back on the air Sunday. A reminder, a week from tonight, no show due to Stag Bowl and Gallardi Trophy week, Stag Bowl week, I should say. I will be in Salem, Virginia for that, the final Stag Bowl for essentially the foreseeable future in Salem. We will be in town for that, so no show, just too much going on next week for us to get that on the air. But we will be on the air this Sunday at 7 o'clock, and we will be on the air next Sunday at 7 o'clock. 3 shows left before the holidays. This Sunday, next Sunday, and the following Thursday. At this time, we will be on the air and then take our holiday break. If you got guest ideas for us, you can always tweet us. You got other ideas, you can email us too. Tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. You can email us, hoopsville@d3hoops.com. Interact with us on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville as well. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Thank you for taking the time. Remember, this is content is copyrighted by Hoopsville and DMAC Productions. We hope you enjoyed the show. I want to thank D3Hoops.com, as always, in the WBCA and NABC as well. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Hope you enjoyed it. Enjoy some good games this weekend, though it is finals time. This is when games are a little bit more sparse, but we'll certainly find some good action nonetheless. You've been listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA and NABC Studios. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on Sunday night.